Okay, so for today's class, we're going to start chapter 16. I just kind of snipped out the title here so you'd be able to recognize it. So it's solving linear equations. Um, Essentially, same as we did last time, we're going to build from solving quite a simple equation and then gradually just add more complication to it. Okay, so the general rule that you need to keep in your head when you're doing these is balance. Okay, so the big thing I'll keep saying is so whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side. Okay? So we're now moving into equations, which if you remember when I introduced expressions to you, I explained that equations will have an equals. Okay? And here they are here. There's a couple here and they all have equals. And then the other thing, I suppose the key word that we need to talk about. So the key word here is solve. Okay, all these questions you'll be asked to solve. And solve basically means find the value for x. Okay, now as I've told you many times, the value of x can change. But in this first question, you've been asked to solve for x. So you've been asked in this equation, what is the value of x? Then you move over here in this equation, what is the value for x? And then over here, what is the value for x? And it could be different in all of them, or some of them might be the same. Okay, now you might be looking at these and think, I can do this already, but I just want to teach you the concepts so that when it gets harder, you can follow it. Okay, so in the first one, it's 2x equals 12. Okay, now if you remember here between a 2 and a letter, so between a number and a letter, there's no operation written in, but the operation is a multiply. Okay, so that is, and you wouldn't need to write this in a question, but just so I can explain it to you, that is 2 multiplied by x equals 12. Okay, so what we're asking ourselves is 2 multiplied by what equals 12. Now, like I said, you probably know the answer, but algebraically, the way we do it. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to isolate this x. Isolate means to get it on its own. Okay, so we always look at an equation. The equals is like the divider. Okay, so we would call this side the left hand side, and then the 12 over here is on the right hand side. Okay, so left hand side, right hand side. Now what I want is that this x is on one of the sides. It doesn't matter which, it can be on left or right, but it has to be on its own. And at the moment it isn't. At the moment the 2 is with it. So the x is on the left hand side, but the 2 is also on the left hand side, which I don't want. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to get rid of the 2. I'm just going to rewrite it. I want to get rid of that 2 from the left hand side. Now, if you want to get rid of something, so the way we get rid of something, whatever it is you perform the inverse operation. Okay, so that's how you get rid of something. Now let me explain that a bit more. So inverse means opposites. And we've talked about operation a few times. The word operation in maths means adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Okay, so if I want to get rid of something, I need to perform the opposite operation. So back over here, we have discussed that what's going on here is if I read this, it's 2 multiplied by x. So there is a multiplication going on here. So what is the inverse operation of multiplication? What is the opposite to multiplication? The opposite to multiplication is divide. So if I want to get rid of that 2, which at the moment is being multiplied, I need to divide by 2. That will take out my 2 for me. But remember up here, I said that you have to balance. So if on the left hand side I needed to divide by 2, then I need to do the same thing on the right hand side. I have to balance. Okay? So now my 2's are gone. So I have the x, and as I wanted, it is now isolated. It is now the only thing on the left-hand side because the 2's are gone. And on the right-hand side, the operation that I have to perform is 12 divided by 2, which is 6. Okay, now, as always, please bear with me and trust me. I can imagine if we were in class, you'd all be going, oh, but I knew that answer at the start. There's a reason why I'm teaching it to you this way. There's a reason why you need to understand this idea of balance and this idea of inverse operation. Okay, so I need you to do it this way. Okay, and again, if anybody's a bit kind of confused or, I know you were the same at the start of the last algebra chapter. And by the end of it, you were fine and you had it. Okay, so just bear with me, realize you're learning a new skill, and just take it step by step. Okay, so we'll try the second one. So the second one is 3x equals 18. Okay, so over this side, I'm just going to insert a line. What should I just do there now? I did not do it right. Okay, so pen, black, insert, line. All right, so just to highlight this side here is your left hand side, and this side here is your right hand side. And what I want when I'm asked to solve is that I want the letter isolated on its own on one of the sides. So the x is on the left hand side, so I'll leave it there. But the problem is I don't want that 3. I want to get rid of or move the 3. So we have to identify what operation is happening at the moment. So at the moment, that 3 is being multiplied by the x. So I've identified that. Now I need to decide what is the opposite of multiply. It's divide. So I would divide by the 3 to get rid of the 3. But I have to remember balance. So if I divide by 3 on the left hand side, I have to divide by 3 on the right hand side. So now the 3's are gone, which means my x is isolated. And then on the right hand side, I have to perform this division, which is 18 divided by 3, which makes 6. Okay, third one, we've been asked to solve 60 equals 20x. Okay, so again, let's throw in a line just so we can identify left hand side and right hand side. We've been asked to solve, so we want to isolate this letter. It's on the right hand side, so we will leave it there, but it should be on its own, and at the moment it's not on its own. It's with the 20. So the first thing we need to do is identify what's going on. What is the operation between the 20 and the x? We know it's a multiply. So now we ask ourselves, what is the opposite of multiply? Because that's how I'm going to get rid of this 20. The opposite is divide. So I divide by 20, and that will take my 20 out. But I must balance. So if I divided by 20 on the right, I'm going to need to divide by 20 on the left. So over here, the 20's are gone, which means I'm left with the x, and it's isolated, which is what I wanted. And 60 divided by 20 is 3. So x is 3, or 3 is x, doesn't matter. Okay, and so I will try just 1 or 2 more. And again, just for practice. Don't worry about verification at this stage. We'll talk about verification later on. You wouldn't really need to verify at this stage. So this question says, solve for y in each of the following equations and verify your answer for part A. Don't worry about verify. There's also a question in your homework and has a big V beside it, which is asking you to verify. At this stage, don't worry about verify. Okay? So let's do A. So we're being asked to solve 4y equals 20. So let's insert a line to separate. Ooh, there you go. Draw. So here is the left-hand side, and here is the right-hand side. I want to isolate the letter, so I want that to be on its own. It's on the left, so I will leave it on the left, but at the moment, together with it is a 4, which I don't want. So I identify the operation between the 4 and the y, which is a multiply, and then I do the opposite of that operation, which is that I divide. That will get rid of the 4. But if I divide by 4 on the left, I must balance that on the right. So y is now isolated and on its own, and 20 divided by 4 is 5. Okay, might do it here actually, just so I'm not taking up so much space. So I have minus 5y equals 30. Green, we'll insert our line. Now, this one obviously has a minus. So here's your left-hand side, here's your right-hand side. We want to isolate the letter, so there it is there, which means it's the minus 5 that's I don't want, I want it gone. So again, what's going on between the minus 5 and the y? It's being multiplied. What's the opposite of multiply? It's divide. So if this y is being multiplied by minus 5, then to do the opposite, I have to divide it by minus 5. Okay, that will take out the minus 5. And for balance, if I divide by minus 5 on the left, I must divide by minus 5 on the right. So now the y is isolated as I want it. Now, this 30 is plus and this is minus. The rules for division are the same as the rules for multiplication, which means these signs are different, so the answer will be negative. And then 30 divided by 5 is 6. Okay, so you can use the rules that you already know from multiplication and apply them to division. So let's try this last one. 4y equals minus 8. We'll put in, didn't change colour, we'll put in our line. Okay, go back. This is the left-hand side, this is the right-hand side. Here is our letter, which needs to be isolated. At the moment, it's being multiplied by a 4 that I don't want. So I want to get rid of that 4. If it's the y is being multiplied by the 4, then to get rid of it, I need to do the opposite of multiply, which is to divide by 4. That will take out my 4. If I divide by 4 on the left, I must balance that by dividing by 4 on the right. Now the y is isolated, and here we go again. So this 4 has a plus. Signs are different. When you divide different signs, you get minus, and then do the numbers. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Okay? So, as if we're in class, I'm not showing you this method for the crack. I want you to do it the way I'm doing it. Okay? So, identify your left-hand side, your right-hand side. Show the division that needs to be done. Follow the steps the way I've done them. Okay, so there's a few questions, I don't know where it is. Here. Okay, so you have 8 questions there for homework, and as I said, ignore that V. Just pretend it's not there. We'll talk about verification a different day. Okay? Okay, so yeah, that's your class for Friday, and that's your homework for the weekend. So have a nice weekend.